All right, my friends. Now we're learning. Let's learn the Haftorah that we're going to read in the synagogue this Shabbat. Now, the Haftorah that we're going to learn and that we're going to read is a Haftorah which is relevant to Parshat Shkalim. Shkalim. What's it? Yeah. Shkalim. And this is what's going to be read this Shabbat. Okay, what is the story? The story is a very strange and sordid story, sort of an embarrassing, really, story that this happened with the Jewish people. We talked about this before. This is a story about what Yoram did. Who was Yoram? Yoram was a king of Israel, king of Yehuda. The king of Yehuda. Okay. More exactly what happened. We've spoken this before, but let's repeat it again. After King Solomon died, so the kingdom of the whole kingdom of the Jews, the land of Israel, split. King Solomon had a son that wasn't a really very popular ruler, and his name was Rehoboam, and he was despised by a lot of the people, and the people wanted to make a rebellion. So to avert a rebellion, so God told a prophet, which is called Achai Shiloni, and he told this prophet to go to a portion called Yerovam ben Nevat and tell him to divide the kingdom, and he was going to be the king of the upper 10 tribes in the north, and Rehoboam, the son of King Solomon, he would maintain his rulership over the lower part, which was called Yehuda, and that's where the Holy Temple was. And on the top, that was the 10 tribes, and that was in the north, more in the northern part of Israel. And they eventually made their capital in the Shomron. And okay, now what happens? Yerovam, as soon as he becomes a king of Israel, so he immediately establishes idolatry as the main religion practice of the country against the Torah. What are you going to do? Not only that, what type of idolatry? 2 golden idols, 2 golden calves. One of them was Dan Beit El, and then the Jewish people also had all sorts of other idols that they made, that they offered up on called Bamot. They sacrificed to the heavens, and they also had Baal. Last week we talked about the duel between Elijah the prophet and the worshippers of the Baal. And this story happens right after that. Okay, so this kingdom of Israel, which was the northern kingdom, so it was a long line of sinners. All the kings were like big time sinners. And they convinced all the people to sin also. They didn't have to do much convincing. They just allowed them to, and they encouraged it. And it gets worse and worse. And with as the generations go on, it becomes worse and worse. Until finally, there's a king, which is called, okay, so there's Yerovam, and then after that, Yerovam, he has a son called Nadav, and he gets killed by a guy called Basha. And Basha, his son takes over, whose name is Elah, and Elah gets killed by his some captain of his army called Zimri. Zimri rules for 7 days, and he gets killed by a guy called Omri. And finally, Omri, he has a son that's called Achav. Now, Achav, he's going to be a big-time sinner. And he wants to make peace with a neighboring country, and what is it called, of Tzur, whatever. Anyway, he gets married to Jezebel. And Jezebel, that's her name, Jezebel. And she like really encourages everything that's against the Torah. She encourages it. And she also has a daughter. Her daughter is called Atalia. And Atalia, she gets married to Yehoram, who was the son of Yoash. That's the king of Yehuda. So in other words, now they got all these sinners. Jezebel is in Israel. That's the 10 tribes. And this Atalia, she's bringing all sorts of idolatry and having a bad influence on her husband, who is Yoram. Okay, eventually what happens is this, okay, now stands up on this whole scene, who's somebody's going to be the next king, and his name is Yehu. And Yehu, he's picked by a prophet, Elijah the prophet. He sends Jonah, he was just young, and he sends him to this Yehu and says, Yehu, you kill all of the whole family of the rulers of the 10 tribes, Israel. Everybody, kill them all. Jezebel and all, the whole bunch of them. And he does. He goes and he kills them all. Oh. Yeah. Shalom. So he kills them all. Just giving a little overview of this. This is the Haftorah that we're going to be reading this Shabbat. After the regular Torah reading, reading this portion from the book of Kings. The second book, there's 2 books of Kings. Second book of Kings. Yes, okay, so here we go. So what happens? This Atalia, that she's the daughter of Jezebel, of Jezebel. Now Jezebel, she's already over there in the 10 tribes of Israel. She's already influencing over there her husband Achav, who's a very big Russia, a big sinner, and her daughter, meanwhile, she's ruling over there in Yehuda, to the degree that finally her daughter Atalia actually becomes the queen of Yehuda, and she's like, number one idolater and just everything you can imagine that people like to do that's against the Torah, she encouraged. Okay, so she finally ended this. So Yehu, who I just told you about, Yehu, that was picked by Jonah the prophet, he was told to kill all the family of the kings of Israel. So he kills them all. And he also kills the son, Achaziah. He kills Achaziah. That's the son of Atalia. He was one of the kings of Judah, right? So he kills him. And this Atalia, the daughter of Jezebel, she takes over Yehuda. So now she's the queen, right? So she now takes it upon herself that she's going to kill all of anybody that comes from the tribe of King David that could possibly be the king. She kills everybody, except for one person. She doesn't kill. And that is a young boy who was 7 years old. He's in the tribe, and his name is Yoash. And Yoash is saved by the daughter of the high priest. The high priest, his name is Yehoyada. He's saved by this high priest called Yehoyada, and this high priest of Yehoyada hides him in the holy temple. And he hides him over there in the holy temple. No, this is not. He wasn't 7 years old. I'm sorry. He was like 3 years old. And he hides him over there until he's like 7 years old. And finally, and that's where our Haftorah starts. That's where the story starts. Okay? So now maybe a little bit, you got the names of these people. You know who the players are. That's Yehoyada a Kohen. All right, here we go. Let's see. We're starting over here. So, Vayichrot Yehoyada. So now this Yehu, he's killed all of the bad guys and all the idol worshippers and the kings, the bad kings. He's wiped them all out. In the end, this Yehu, he becomes himself an idol worshiper. You'll see. I mean, if you read the book of Kings, then you'll see. But here it's not told that. So, meanwhile, this Yoram, Yoash has been saved from evil Atalia, the daughter of Jezebel, So he's been saved. All the others have been killed, and Yoash has been saved. Okay, so Yehoyada, who has been hiding Yoash the young boy, he says, now the time has come. We're going to make a real king over Yehuda, not Atalia. Atalia, the daughter of Jezebel, she's now the king of Israel. She's the queen. And she's like totally evil person. So Yehoiada, he makes a covenant. Now this is in the temple, right? The holy temple. And this Atalia, she's like destroyed the holy temple. She's defiled everything she can. She didn't destroy the whole thing, but she's defiled and people stopped going there. This is in the southern part, right? So in the northern part of Israel, no one went to the holy temple because they were busy worshiping the golden calf and all these other terrible things. And in the south, this Atalia, she's encouraging everyone to do as many sins as possible. Meanwhile, there's the high priest Yehoiada, and this is how it starts. He made a pact Bein Hashem, between God between God and the king. King is this Yoash, young boy. Ubein Am, and between the people. Liot La'am, and all the people will be for God. They're not going to worship these idols anymore like the people in the north are doing, and like Atalia, the evil queen, wants them to. Ubein HaMelech Ubein Am, and all the people accepted on themselves to serve God and to serve the king. This is our king. Vayavo Kol Ha'am Oretz Beit HaBaal. So all the people, they descended on the house of the Baal. Baal was this idol worship. Elijah the prophet just made this big duel against the Baal on Mount Carmel. Remember, we learned last week, and fire came down for his sacrifice, and everybody yelled out, Hashem, the God of Israel, he's the king. It didn't stick. The people, but some of the people it did. And some of the people, they decided they're going to leave the whole thing. They're going to leave this Baal worship. And Yehoiada, he's the high priest. He encourages everyone. So now they all got down to the house of the Baal. They had a big central Baal worshiping place, temple. V'yetutzu, and they wrecked it, and all the altars that were over there, and all of the statues, they broke. And they broke it very completely. That Matan Kohen of Baal, and there was a person called Matan, that was his name, and he was the high priest of this Baal. Like I said last week, as far as I know, Baal worship was worshiping the sun. Oh, sun. Anyway, the Horgu, they all killed the high priest, Lifnei Amizbachot, in front of the altars. Vayasem HaKohen, and the high priest, Yehoiada, he made kudot, he started fixing up Beit Hashem. He started giving orders how to fix up the house of God. Right? Kudot. Administrators and orders. Vayikach et Saria Meot, and he took the leaders of the hundreds, Vetakeri and the Kiri are the strong men, big warriors, Vetaratzim, and the leaders, like the mayors, that call Amoritz and all the people, Vayoridu at the Melech, and they took this Melech, Yoash, this young boy, from the house of God. They took him from the temple where he was hiding. Vayavo derech sha'ar ratzim, and they took him through the gate of the army, the Beit HaMelech, to the house of the king, to the palace. Vayeshev al kis, and they put him on the royal throne in the royal palace. Vayismach kol ha'am, and the people were very happy. Va'ir shkata, and the city was finally quiet. Va'atalia, and that evil queen, the daughter of Jezebel, that had established herself to be queen, hey, me too, they killed her becherev, with a sword. Beit HaMelech, in the house of God, in the king's palace, because that's where she was trying to sit, right? Okay, next chapter. Here we go, 1 minute. Perek Aleph, just one moment. Got to figure out how to change chapters. 1 minute. Excuse me. Is this it? No. Oh, here we go. These are the chapters. Here we go. Chapter 12. Ben Sheva Shanim Yoash b'Malcho. Yoash was 7 years old, right? He was taken out. This Atalia was killing all the royal family, so he was whisked out by Yehoyada, the high priest. His daughter whisked him out and brought him to save him. Now they waited 4 years, and now they anointed him to be the king. He was now 7 years old. Okay. Bishnat Sheva LeYehu, in the 7th year of the rulership of Yehu. Yehu, he was the king of Yisrael, right? He was the one that was killing all these other, the whole family of Yerovam ben Nevat and Achav and everybody. Melech Yoash, that's when Yoash was picked to be the king, when in the 7th year of the rulership of Yehu. Arbaim Shana, and he ruled for 40 years. Melech B'Yerushalayim, he ruled for 40 years in Jerusalem. V'Shem Imo, in the name of the mother of Yoash, was Tzviah Meber Sheva. That was her name. Tzviah, right? Vayash Yoash Hayashar, and Yoash did what was right. Be'enei Hashem. Call him of all of his days. Asher Harau, whatever told him Yehoyada HaKohen, all of the days that Yehoyada HaKohen told him. Okay, it doesn't want to tell us the story, but the fact is Yehoyada HaKohen, he was pretty old when this whole business started, and he died at the age of 130. But when he died, as the pressure was too great on Yoash, and Yoash started worshiping idols himself. In any case, let's just talk about the good things before he went sour. Now, all the time that Yehoyada was alive, as Yoash the king, he was good. And he rocked the bamos, only these high places, the private altars, he didn't get rid of. It was just too hard to do. Everybody was making little altars. The Jewish people really had this tremendous, lust and drive for worshiping idols. It was back then. It was a big, terrible thing. The time of the first temple, it says that the men of the Anshe Knesset Gadol, the men of the Great Assembly, in the beginning of the second temple, in order to avoid this problem, because the Jews they were just uncontrollable about this, so they fasted. It says they fasted and they killed the lust for idolatry. So we don't really know what it is today. We don't have that same lust for idolatry. Nowadays we have lust for other things, but it's not as great as lust as it was. That now the big enemy we have now is simply ignorance. The Jewish people are simply not educated as to what God is. That's what Chabad took on themselves. Nevertheless, that was the big problem back there, was idolatry. So it's a little bit hard for us to relate to the lust that people had for idolatry. Now we got Christianity a little bit. It is officially idolatry. It's true that it's idolatry, but it still is not the same thing as it was back then. That's at least what I heard. Od, also mizabchim. Also, people were making all sorts of offerings, animal offerings, and incense offerings on these bamot, on the high places. He couldn't stop them. Now, this is the part that's going to be relevant to this idea, this week's Torah portion, which is taking the half of a shekel. Vayomer Yoash el Kohanim, Yoash the king said to the Kohanim, call kesef hakadoshim, all of the money, asher yuvo beit Hashem, that has been brought to you, kesef over ish. This is what's called the half a shekel, the money which is, it says, the machzeh shekel, kol over al pakudim. That's what we say. So all these half shekels that are brought, lahavi beit Hashem, should be brought to the house of God. How did it used to be? Before Yoash stood up, as the Kohanim, they would receive money, and whenever they saw something that needed to be fixed up in the Holy Temple, they would fix it up. The problem is the Kohanim, for whatever reason it was, and we're not blaming anybody here, but the Kohanim, they didn't fix everything up. They didn't. I guess everybody thought maybe somebody else will do it, or maybe I need the money more for my this, or maybe I'm holy. In any case, they didn't. So now Yoash is taking control of this whole business, and he says, we have to fix up the Holy Temple. The Holy Temple is in terrible disrepair. we've killed all the bad guys, and which they're all going to come back anyway. Yoash becomes also one of the bad guys himself, but nevertheless, we have to fix up the temple. Vayiku lahem kohanim. Take the kohanim should take ish me'et makaro. Every person from other kohanim, from anybody that they know. Right? Makiro, the aim yechazku, and the kohanim should now strengthen, take this money, don't use it for yourself, use it for the holy temple. Any money that's bought, use it for the holy temple in order to get any donation that they can. Vayihi, and it was. Bishnas Esrim V'Shalosh, in the 23rd year of the rulership of the king, right? In other words, he's now 30 years old. On the 23rd year of the king Yoash, Lo Chizku HaKohanim, it still didn't get done. The Kohanim still did not fix up the holy temple. In other words, he's been waiting there for 23 years, and it still has not worked. Right? Vayikra Melech, the king, he called to Yoyada Kohen, the one who saved him, for the Kohanim, and to the Kohanim, and he said to them, Madua einechem mechazkim et habayit. I told you to do it. You're getting all this money from everybody, and people are giving you donations. Why don't you fix up the holy temple? V'ata al tichu, says, from now on, don't take money from anybody. Ki leberek habayit titnu. Give it straight. We're going to make a charity box, and everybody's going to put the money in this charity box. The Yasu Kohanim, and the Kohanim agreed. The Vilti Kach Kesed, no one's going to take money and put it in their pocket. The Vilti Chazak at Berek Habayit, and but rather they're going to give it over to the repair fund for the temple. Vayikach Yehoyada Kohen, and Yehoyada Kohen took a big box. Vayikov Chor Bedalto, and he made a hole in the door, on the top of one, on the side. And he put it on the right side of the altar. And anyone who came to the house of God, the Natnu Shama, and he would give it to a Kohen. The regular person can't go where the altar is, but they would give it to the Kohen. The Kohen would not have any pockets. He would put it directly, Shomer Asaf, those people who are the watchers of the door watchers. Oh. So at Kolakez of all the money that was brought to the house of God. So, okay, somebody just came in now, Abalak, and I'll just, in a short way, I'll just repeat in a very summary, give a short summary of this is the Haftorah of this week's Shabbos, this Shabbos. It's Haftorah for the part of Shkalim, and it talks about the story of King Yoash, that King Yoash was the only one that escaped the wrath of the previous evil king of Israel, a lady called Atalia, who was the daughter of Jezebel, that Jezebel was like the queen over in the 10 tribes of Israel. And this is talking about where there wasn't the Holy Temple. And Yoash and Atalia, her daughter, she was ruling over the lower part, the 2 tribes, where that's where the Holy Temple was. And she was like big time sinner and encouraging everybody else to sin. And she killed all of the house of King David, and only one person escaped, Yoash, that he was 3 years old, and the daughter of Yehoyada a Kohen saved him, hid him in the Holy Temple, and he got out, and then Yehoyada a Kohen crowned him and said, now you're going to be the king, and immediately took things into his own hands. Yehoyada took things into his own hands, and he said, let's kill all of the worshipers of the Baal, which he did, and he eradicated Baal worship, and he killed this Atalia, evil daughter of Jezebel, the queen of Yehuda. And now Yoash is growing up, and he says okay, Kohanim, let's fix up the Holy Temple. And they don't do it. 27 years, they just don't fix up the Holy Temple. So he says, now we're going to fix it up. All of this money, the half a shekel that everybody gets, as we're going to make a big chest, and everyone that comes into the Holy Temple that wants to give a donation, or the people that give half a shekels, the Kohanim will not put it in their pocket anymore. This is going to be put into this big chest. And it came out. That there's a lot of money in this big chest that they made. Vayal Sofra Melech, there came the treasurers of the king, and also the Kohen Gadol, Yoyada, and they counted it and they bundled it up in bundles. The Kesef and Nimsa Beit Hashem, the money that was found in the house of God. But nothing with the Kesef Metukan Al Yadei Oseh Malacha, and they gave this money to the workers who were going to do the work and the Pekidim over the work on the house of God. And they gave it also to those who carved wood, the Lavonim and the bricks, Ha'osim Beis Hashem, that were done in the house of God. V'ha'gordim, and the rock hewers, the Lechotz ve'evan, and those people who worked on stone. The Liknos Eitzim, to buy more wood, the Avnei Machzev, and also hewn out stones in order to strengthen the Bedek Beit Hashem, the overseeing and the day-to-day running of the house of God. And all the expenses that were needed for the house of God in order to strengthen it. But lo yaseh Beit Hashem, they did not make in the house of God safot kesef mizamrot mizrakot chatzotzrot. They didn't make any vessels of musical instruments with this money. They didn't fix that up. It was only just to build the temple and to fix it up. Right. Also, the basins, it says trumpets and basins and any implements of gold and silver. There was been only for the actual house itself that they used this money. Key, because l'osei malacha yitnu, it was only given to those people, to the working men, and they repaired v'cheskubo, and they repaired the house of God. V'lo yachshavu et anashim, and the Kohanim, there was no overseeing. Nobody made an accounting with those people who were given the money to the workmen. They had to take it out. Why asher yidnu kesef adam l'teis l'osei malacha? They trusted the men who were accountable for. They trusted these people who were allocating the money from this chest to the workmen. They didn't pay any. They didn't make any scrutiny over them. Because they did everything they did was done with integrity. The keshev oshav, the keshev chatas, and the money which was from the leftover money from the guilt offerings and from the sin offerings. Right, that money was not brought to the house of God. That money that people brought for the offerings, that was given to the Kohanim. Right, the money, that's where the Kohanim lived for. That's where they got their money from, was from the leftover money from the offerings and the sacrifices. Okay, what's going to happen later on is really he establishes the house of God and everybody's worshiping. The problem is, as soon as Yehoyada, the high priest, dies, as he leaves his son, and his name was Zachariahu, and Yoash, this king Yoash, he wiped out all the idolatry. He himself starts to become an idolater. And he has opposition, and the opposition is led by the son of Yehoyada, the one who saved him, and he kills him. He kills the son of the high priest that saved him. He was also the high priest, killed him. And because of this, it was decreed against him that he would not live very long, and he wasn't. Yoash, this king Yoash, he didn't last very long. And so it went on. The house of Judah and the house of Israel. Eventually, the kings of Israel are all destroyed. That's about 150 years before the second temple is destroyed. All of those 10 tribes were taken away by someone called Shalmaneser. He took them away, and to this very day, we don't know where they are. There's all sorts of theories about where they are. So what are we talking about here? We're talking about the re-establishing and the remodeling of the temple that had been destroyed by idolaters and evil kings and evil queens that had before, and that the Mashiach will come and reestablish the third temple, and everyone will be rejoicing. Tomorrow, God willing, we're going to learn, we'll finish 8:15 in the morning. We are going to finish the Devar Malchut that we began today. So I hope to see you tomorrow morning, 8:15. We'll finish the Devar Malchut, talking about the uniqueness of Vayakel, unifying the Jews with God, unifying the Jews with each other, unifying the Jews with the whole world. You can look at the past classes and see what we did this morning. And that's what we'll learn tomorrow to prepare ourselves so when Mashiach actually builds the third temple and comes down from heaven, we'll be expecting. We won't resist. We'll be tremendously surprised, but we won't resist. We'll be expecting it. We'll be longing for it. And that's what we really need. Hope to see you tomorrow, 8:15 in the morning. God bless you all. Have a good day with Mashiach. Now, Shalom Avracha. Shalom.